Okay, what's up, everybody that's tuned in to this? If you tuned in, I know it's like the midnight hour, but just wanted to share some updates, some research that I wanted to document and not just keep to myself. If I'm not looking at the cameras, just because how the camera's positioned, my screen's here, whatever. Content of what I'm saying is more important than eye direction. Also, I'm looking at this pane over here that kind of has everything written down on it as my reference point. So basically, so boom. So when I think about the human experience, my first assumption in my research is that I'm a soul having a human experience. And as a soul having a human experience, question certain questions come up about ways a soul can be, different ways a soul can show up as a human. Right. So different postures, dispositions, or clothing, different mannerisms, different languages, different shapes, sizes, and styles that a soul can manifest as a human being or manifest as itself and wear the shell, the vessel. And what inspired me to think about this, I would say many different experiences in my life, but one in particular was the experience of noticing how differently people grieve based on their culture. And I'm originally, I grew up in North New Jersey, in North, in the early 2000s, 2010s. I guess my generation dealt with a lot of community violence, people dying. A lot of brothers my age did not make it this far, age-wise. And so the way that people grieve was different depending on what their family believed, their personal and collective ontologies, which is basically the study of what exists. So that ties into their religion and their rituals and practices. For example, Christians, God exists, they believe in angels, they also believe in demons. That's their ontology. If you were to list out all the characters that they feel like exist, that would be their ontology. Whereas other cultures have different ontologies. And so they might not think heaven or hell exists. They might not even believe in God. They might be atheists. They may say when you die, nothing happens. You just dead. There's no. So Newark also has a big Muslim population. I don't know much about the ins and outs of Islam. However, similar to Christians, they have some notion of an afterlife. They believe in God, it's a higher power. I also think they believe in punishment in the afterlife. I don't know if they call it hell. I'm not sure. Then you got other cultures like cultures that believe in different forms of reincarnation. So you might not go to hell, you might just come back as an animal. Different possibilities. And because of what people believe happens after you die, that affects how people see death and how they treat it. For example, in certain African spiritual systems, they feel like you can still interact with your ancestors. So even if somebody died, you could build a shrine, things to them, and have them guide you along this path while you're still alive. Whereas other cultures, they might say, nah, that's voodoo, that's hoodoo, that's, witchcraft, whatever, because they have different ontologies. So they don't, they kind of butt heads a little bit. Say all that to say, that's really where it started, just watching different cultures grieve. And I kind of looked at how Lauren London responded publicly to Nipsey Hussle's death, and how his mom responded publicly to his death. And they seemed to take it in a reserved, demure, calm, had a certain peace about the situation. Whereas I want to say in movies, I know movies are kind of exaggerated caricatures of people, but in certain movies you might see somebody try to jump in the coffin or jump on top of the casket like they bawling out, crying their tears, they crying their eyes out, like hysterical almost. And the contrast between the two is something about their relationship that might fuel why people react how they react. But I'm only looking at like bits and pieces of relationships. It's too much in a scientific way. I mean, so the main thing I'm harping on, I guess, is the fact that the person that jumped on top of the cabin in the hole, first of all, the practice of burying the dead is a cultural ritual. That means something to people that believe in that. Some people don't even believe in that, so they would never have a casket to jump on top of because they're not going to bury the dead in the first place. They might just cremate and get the ashes, or they might, do other things with the body. And so that got me thinking, right? Now that we can acknowledge that different cultures grieve differently. If the assumption is that souls exist, we're not arguing or debating, or there's no room for skepticism about whether souls exist. That's our starting point. That's our baseline. Then why do some souls grieve with less? Why do some souls grieve better than others? And we could operationalize better to me with less. There's a million ways to do it. One way we could do it is like, why do some souls grieve? The start and end point of grief. If you can even do that, why do some souls grieve with less volume, like literally volume, instead of like yelling, bringing volume up? They just keep it low. Why do some souls grieve with less residual impact on other areas of their life, such as affecting uh, how much it bleeds over into other things in your life? And again, skeptic could say it depends on who the person is, whatever. But I mean, again, I'm looking at culture, religion, and why did I mean it could be the relationships. It's gonna be hard to compare. Like, say two people lost their dog. I mean, even if they both lost their very first dog, that don't mean the bond between them was the same. So that would be hard to compare the bonds. Point being, some people gonna ball out crying. They gonna call out a word. They might have an attitude with people. They don't want to talk. They're not answering their phone, whatever. Whereas other people might see it like, I'm thankful I got the time that I got to spend with that dog, and a picture in it, or get a painting, commission me to do a painting of the dog. And they kind of at peace with it, or they feel like the dog's still with them. They talk to it, they leave food out, still got a bowl. They feel like the dog watching over them. There's a million different ways that people could adapt to that situation. So the question is, how do souls choose? All of this to get to this is the scenic route to get to another assumption that comes after like once we can concede that, or we can agree that souls exist, the next assumption would be um, meaning their beliefs, their culture, their ontology, their religion, their lifestyles, their careers, their partners, whatever, is all arbitrary. So we kind of just make it up as we go. And that being said, me growing up in America, I speak English. Had I grown up in China, I probably would speak Chinese. So for some things, for some aspects or details of how souls show up, it seems like it's like first come, first served basis. Whoever gets to that soul first can lay the foundation, and then everything else after that, I guess, align with it. And so, roundabout way to acknowledge two assumptions. First one is souls exist. Second one is souls have choice, right? And decisions that souls make are arbitrary. And so, being said, now we might assess these arbitrary decisions that souls are making. How can we judge them as better or worse? And like the old adage goes, you judge a tree by the fruit. You judge it by the fruit. If a soul, Christian rituals, Christian lifestyle, and it's leading them to grieve hysterically, like cry, question their faith, be depressed, and things like that, if they're somehow connected, I would say that belief is worse than another belief that they could also choose. They will be at peace. They will be not depressed. They will be actually happy and understanding of just the life cycle. Life and death is just part of life. Not to be cold. I mean, they can still be warm and fuzzy, but you know. And so that leads me to the next point, which is okay, so arbitrary. And souls have what I coined, on my credit, if it ever comes up later, the mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure. Emotional intrapsychic infrastructure. Mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure. Souls have a mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure that is essentially the platform wherein beliefs, thoughts, attitudes, tendencies, that's where it all exists. It's essentially someone's mind, their internal world. To say the mind is kind of misleading because sometimes people don't include emotion in the mind. But if I was just saying it casually, like loosely, I would say, yeah, it's in their mind. But really it's in their me, MEII, mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure. And the best way that I could illustrate that using a metaphor would be the mental and emotional, the settings. If this was a video game, if life was a video game, it may be your mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure are the settings that the soul sets up for themselves to configure the relationships between their thoughts and their feelings and all other aspects of their need. How do you arrange your beliefs and what pattern, what dogmas, what schemas, what do you believe exists? What do you believe about yourself? What do you expect? What language do you speak? What culture do you practice? Things like that. And so, depending on how you configure all of that, how you arrange it in your mind, that's going to, and because of that, what my research is looking at is how do the individual parts as well as the whole configuration relate to quality of life. When I say individual parts, I mean specific beliefs. So, for example, that God exists. I could also have a specific belief that God does not exist. Those beliefs don't exist in a vacuum or in isolation. Typically, beliefs have a relationship with other information that we have. Information also belongs in the me because sometimes lack of information, maybe it's information, maybe they have an abundance of information. But the amount of information, the amount of knowledge that someone has also is in their me because that's affecting the relationship between how their beliefs interact, which beliefs take priority over others, if there's competition, if there's cognitive dissonance, which beliefs win, which tendencies, attitudes, biases, things like that take precedent. And so in video games, the one I would liken it to the most would be Fortnite. If you go on YouTube and you just YouTube Fortnite keybinds, um, but it's all good. That'll come later. We'll do another one of these later. But basically, keybinds are assignments of buttons to actions on the screen. So if you can imagine, say you're playing PlayStation. You're playing GTA. When you pull, yeah, you press right R2. You press R2 to shoot. That key is bound to that action, R2, because remember, computers operate based on coding, right? So part of the reason why neuroscientists are like in bed with each other is because what we're finding is that humans are also coded essentially with these basic, like simple relationships. And uh, basically, the the default setting for a video game on PlayStation for GTA is you press R2, you shoot whatever weapon is in your hand, or you punch or whatever it is. You can go into the settings and manually change. Suppose you left-handed instead of right-handed. It might actually be more comfortable for you to use L2 than R2, like to flip your controls so that way you shoot them with your dominant hand, even though the default setting is for right-handed players. And essentially, that's what I'm getting at intrapsychically, that have certain configurations. Maybe it's their default setting. Maybe that's how they was raised. That's the culture they grew up in, where R2 means shoot. When they become an adult and they reflect on their upbringing, they may decide to change certain things. For example, I don't cook my vegetables that long. There's a lot of vegetables I ate when I was younger. They was a little soggy. That the elders used to eat it like all the vitamins and nutrients out the vegetables. So yeah, when you get older, you might decide, nah, I'm actually left-handed. So in order for me to shoot faster, have a better reaction time, let me switch the control. So L2 means shoot now. Once you make that switch, the hope or the idea is that it's gonna cause an effect. So say you playing online. If you playing with your non-dominant hand on the default settings, R2 means shoot. You playing in this game, it's 100 other players from around the world. Say you die, like you the 50th player to die in like a battle royale style game. Cool, you done beat almost half of everybody there. Means shoot. Say you go to like number 25. Based on the fact that your performance increased, I would argue that L2 as the shoot button, that keybind, is better than R2 as a shoot button for you, for that individual. So we can say the belief that God exists can lead to certain outcomes that might be better or worse than the belief that God does not exist. And once you change your belief and see the effect on your life, then you can too say which one was better or worse. The benefit of having so many people in the world is you don't actually have to go through the process of changing your beliefs personally. What we can do is get a group of people that believe God exists, get a group of people that believe God does not exist, and just compare their outcomes, compare their quality of life outcomes. Same thing with the controller, if you really wanted to, because I'm pretty sure there's a couple of games I played. It's been a while since I played. Remembering correctly, certain games had different preset configurations. So they might already have profiles set up, like you could set your controller up in this particular mode A, then there's mode B, and then I guess you could custom where you individually reassign each key. I think it has a whole keyboard. When you place your hands on the keyboard, depending on your hand size, which hand is dominant, and just what's comfortable to you, like depending on how like biologically technical you want to get, it could be some people might be double jointed, some people might have like wrist differences, some people might have arm differences, finger differences, fat fingers, skinny fingers. That might all affect what's comfortable for that individual playing, on a PC game. Hence, that might also affect their need or desire to switch to keybinds. Because whoever's the standard person is probably satisfied with however the keybinds already are on default. But you always have center that bell curve that's not going to work for them. Like the cookie cutter doesn't work for them. And so all I'm saying is that, cool, everybody, we could be equitable and give everybody, allow everyone to change the keybinds to what's comfortable for them. Once they do that, now let's see who's winning, right? Like everybody y'all set up, so you say we got 10 people in mode C, and let's say we run the game like 100 times. Which out of them 3 groups, which keybind, which setting, which configuration, which mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure led to the best outcome, i.e. winning the game? Did Mode A have 90 out of 100 games, 90 of the winners used Mode A? Because that would tell me something about Mode A. So the reason I say my research is, well, I haven't said it, but I thought it. My research exists at the junction between philosophy, underneath philosophy, and neuropsychology. So some of the conclusions that I'm drawing and the things that I'm saying come from my life experience. Actually, a lot of it. And it comes from introspection, intuition, and just paying attention to life. And so that's basically the short of it. Every soul has a mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure that they themselves or the people around them configure in a certain arrangement. Based on that configuration, let's not say based on, using that configuration, they play this game. Right, once your buttons are all bound, once all your keys are bound, all the keys are assigned a function. Maybe some keys are disabled. Maybe you don't want to use all the keys. But once you have some configuration, the game starts. You get out there in the game, you do your best, and you find your place. You find out how well you did. Like the motivational speakers say, success leaves clues. And sometimes the success isn't necessarily the individual, it may just be their equipment. And in this case, the equipment is the mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure. How did you set up your mind? How did you organize your internal world? Because how you organize your external world, which is our reality. Once we know which one is better between, I guess, dichotomous or binary beliefs. We can start to build profiles and we can see like what are the high yield beliefs to have, top 10 high yield beliefs to have. Because we'll be able to identify patterns. Like most people that believe God exists, one of the simplest things to do would be to look at money, but it's not even about money. But that's one way you could look at it. In my research, bringing in the neuropsychology, I'm more so interested in the brain and the quality of life outcomes are more like behavior related. So instead of it being like who makes the most money, people that believe God exists or people that don't believe God exists, you could say who scores the highest on a neuropsychological assessment. People that believe God exists, people that further, right? Because the neuropsychological assessment is essentially a proxy. It's supposed to tell us something about the person. So the assessment itself may not be as meaningful, especially if it's an assessment done in isolation, when typically those assessments are done, based on a referral and within, just say, we want to look at frontal lobe. Why? Let's say we want to look at frontal lobe, we want to look at executive functioning, specifically we want to look at inhibition. Because this all starts with grief, right? So, boom, let's play this out. And think about this out loud and play it back later. And the public can give feedback if y'all so choose, whatever y'all want to do. But let's play this out, right? Okay, so gotta make sure I ain't lose my train of thought. Frontal cortex, inhibition. I'm thinking like, when I originally came up with the idea, I was thinking Stroop test. Right. Problem with the Stroop test, there's not even a problem with the test. The inconvenience of a Stroop test is the administration of the test. Which, to some people, that's a fact. There's actually, honestly, there's no problems. Right? That goes back to the schema and my mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure and how that affects my willingness or readiness to do what needs to be done. Stroop test is just fine as it is. However, on another note, trail making test might, I don't know. Well, yes, it does. It does for switching. Yes, it does. Trail making test number 4. Test number 4. I hope I'm not butchering that. I hope I make my professors proud. Okay. Say we get, let's just do 2 groups. Half is Christian, the other half is atheist. And we see between the Christians and the atheists who scores higher on a Stroop test or a trail making test, we could infer the quality of their prefrontal cortex functioning and their ability to inhibit. How does that tie back to grief? Suppose we switch the belief to, instead of it being Christians versus atheists, let it be I would need to marinate. Hold on, let me just say it. Okay. Instead of doing Christians versus atheists, let's do people that believe they get whatever they want versus people that believe they cannot get whatever they want. Let's make it the exact opposite. Has a belief, I get whatever I want. The other group has a belief, I do not get whatever I want. And then we have them both do a Wisconsin card sort. Card sort because it's a neuropsych test, and that test is one where you got to figure out when did the rule change. It's basically looking at your ability to switch to inhibit a rule that you already learned and then adopt a new rule. How fast can you do that? If you can't do it fast, and I could say people who believe they get whatever they want, is that belief is worse than people who believe they don't get whatever they want, because the people who believe they get whatever they want tend to perseverate more based on their scores on the Wisconsin card sort, which we can infer about anatomy and brain functioning. That's only if we're using like paper tests. If we wanted to actually look at brains, one day we'll get access to some neuroimaging technology and we can actually look at it. We can administer the Wisconsin card sort and watch their brain while they do it. See now, but we all like neuroscientific, like neuropsychology, neuroscience come together, even though the two can be teased apart. So yeah, that would be fire. Like put them in an fMRI, one of them machines, and see. Because I'm the reason I'm thinking how I want will perseverate more is because they might not. It might take a while for it to click to them that they not getting what they want. You know what I'm saying? Although here comes the beauty of souls manifesting in human beings. They're so complex. And because beliefs don't exist in a vacuum, beliefs are often supported by other beliefs. That's why, like, even within the mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure, some beliefs mean more to a person, and some beliefs aren't even beliefs. It's just information. So you got information, you got knowledge, you got beliefs, and then you got, I guess you could throw reasons in there, right? Because reasons kind of, if this was a house, think reasons might be between like the boards, maybe the glue or like the cement between the bricks. Like your reasons is basically your, in a sense, it could be your defense if somebody try to challenge your belief. Like that's what holds it up. Also, it's why you believe what you believe. So it's the reason for it. And I know that's using the word in the definition, but essentially it's going to vary person to person. My belief that I get whatever I want may have come through early childhood experiences with whenever I cried or something, my parents did whatever I wanted to stop me from crying. And then I generalized that to think, as I got older, I get whatever I want. I mean, I asked for this, that, and the third. I got everything on my Christmas list, like everything on my birthday list. I always get whatever I want. Support my belief. However, those experiences could support a belief that expires, well, whose adaptivity expires as I get older. So maybe me believing I get whatever I want was cool at 12 years old because I was still under my parents' care. But if I become an adult or something, they had that back. And then 18, I started smoking weed. They cut me off. They like, you got to provide for yourself. You ain't gonna sit in my house smoking weed all day, sitting on the couch. She's like, cool, I'm gonna go out here. Now I got to do it myself. Can I still get whatever I want on my own dime? Maybe not. So now that the circumstances change, that's when you kind of had that cognitive dissonance. Like, I have this belief that I get whatever I want, but at the same time, and I think there's so much variance in that because you can have another person whose belief that I get whatever I want could also come from their parents not being there at all. That could just be a determined soul saying like, I'm gonna speak this into existence. I believe I get whatever I want because I know I work hard. I know you know, first one in, last one to leave. I know I'm putting in the time and the effort to get it. So there's no way I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna stop until I get it. That belief, same belief, different support. So if these are two houses, right, depending on the nature of the storm and the nature of them beliefs, one house might fall and the other one might stand. For example, say it's a hurricane. The hurricane blow a bunch of termites in the air. Now they all on both. They on both. Didn't plan for no termites. They ain't put no protection on it or nothing. That joint get ate up. Now the integrity of your house is gone. That's kind of what happens. Like if you ever walking down the street and you see, no disrespect to nobody, if you see the brothers like Black Israelites, right? You walking down the street, you walking down the street, you see the Black Israelites. All of a sudden, they just start talking to you about the Bible. You thought you had it figured out. They're like, nah, you actually this, that, and the third. If your beliefs was on a weak foundation, that's just like a storm throwing termites on your building. And you ain't have no type of top coat, no nothing to protect it. Like now, your belief is vulnerable because your reasons suck. Well, that's a bad way to say it. Your reasons are not sufficient. Therefore, even though in my original framing of the situation, I'm grouping people based on beliefs. I'm acknowledging, not in this particular study, but just in the back of my mind, I'm acknowledging that the path that people went to acquire these beliefs is going to be different person to person, which that could be its whole other study. Because even within this, if we look at the group of people who believe God exists, they all probably got their own different reasons. Some people believe that because they was told to believe that. They never thought about it themselves, never questioned it. They scared to question it. Like sometimes you get a belief mixed with an emotion. Well, usually it's a thought mixed with an emotion together that becomes belief. But if you got a belief that's like challenging it, questioning it, that's like, that could go a lot of different ways. But that's another topic for another day. Point being, everybody's going to have their own path to form these beliefs, and additional studies could look at how the path to form the beliefs affects brain development. It mean like how your brain structures look. Like if you was to take a picture of your brain, do are certain parts totally gone? Are certain parts bigger than others? That would really be an interesting way to look at it and that's the whole point of getting a neuroimaging. If we look at people that believe God exists, look at people that believe God does not exist, we look at people that believe I get whatever I want, and the other people that right behind their forehead, you see. For the people that struggle on the Wisconsin card sort test, or the people that believe they get whatever they want, what does their frontal lobe look like? Is it deteriorating? I mean, on average, because obviously everybody's gonna have it on average, what does it look like? Is there an average? Can we even normalize that? And then the other one, on the assessment, get life outcomes, income, quality of life measures like depression, anxiety, different scales like that to see how they're doing. Those are kind of like clinical scales, but we could also look at just self-report. That's the whole point of me developing a measure to study positive things, more like positive sidebar, but maybe that's another video. The whole thing about mental health, mental illness, disorders and stuff like that is like, if you find yourself, questioning mental health, mental illness, and you meet a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor, a therapist, a social worker, anybody in there, ask them this question: what does a mentally healthy person look like? And if they ask the question back to you, oh no, what do you think it looks like? I'm not judging that answer, because that's something that people in that field would do. But what is your standard for mental health? As it stands, I don't think there is one. We have a whole I'm going to go on my rant a little. We have a whole diagnostic manual full of disorders that tell you what mental illness looks like. It's funny that within common language, we use mental health and mental illness interchangeably. They're two different things. It's not so much a mental health issue, unless we're saying health as a broad category. It's more like a mental illness, like something's going on, I'm not well mentally. Mental health is more like, I'm doing well, I'm doing great, I'm in great spirits, a lot of green flags, things are going wonderful. But we don't have a diagnostic manual to identify, or teaching, we're not trained to identify green flags, or like, what does mental health look like? We just know what mental illness looks like, and I guess it's to assume that if you're not mentally ill, you're mentally healthy, which is not true, because you can be mentally healthy and mentally. I look at it kind of like a Rubik's Cube, Anybody could get one side all red, or all blue, or all yellow. You might get two sides. But if you can get all six, then you complete the cube. And that's kind of how I look at it. Like, yeah, somebody might deal with depression, but at the same time, They might be functioning and depressed. Is that mental health? I mean, are you healthy? Because nobody will really know. Nobody will know really but you if you're that functional. And if you're that functional, is it even depression? Because within all the disorders, there has to be some disorder, some chaos. Something is not going well. That's a topic for another day, but it does kind of is how the way that a soul sets up their mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure may predispose them to certain clinical or psychiatric disorders, such as depression or anxiety. And more importantly, um, no, actually nothing. We had about almost at an hour. Um, any questions anyone has about my research, you could just put it in the chat. I won't answer it right now because I can't see comments right now. I will answer them later when I see them. Hold on. Oh, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah, in summation, my research is focused on how souls configure their mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure and how that, and by looking at that, we can identify philosophically which beliefs are better than others and which aspects of the mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure are better than others, and which configurations as a whole are better than others. Even like couples, like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, where you might, it was certain cards that you could put together and make it into like ultimate card. I remember it was one card specifically. It was like different parts of one character. You get like the head, the arms, and then the legs. You put all 5 cards together. It was like an unbeatable card, something like that. I think that's how the mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure is around. For example, in my ontology, I might believe that demons exist. And we could look at the effect of people that believing that demons exist and the people that don't believe demons exist and how that affects quality of life. But we could also look at how does me believing demons exist in combination with my belief that God exists affect my quality of life, and then compare to others. Again, they don't believe that God exists affect their quality of life. There's a million ways it could go. And that was and another thing. And another thing. It's the journey. It's not the destination. Or the journey is the destination because now, you know, demographic questions don't have to be limited to ethnicity, age, race, gender. Demographic questions can include aspects of your mental and emotional intrapsychic infrastructure. In this day and age, with all the spiritual believers versus non-believers, and if we can look at believers versus non-believers of specific beliefs, now it's no longer the souls that are under scrutiny. It's the belief that's under scrutiny. And the belief itself has a life of its own. And I kind of got this realization by looking at how people interact. If you look at a coach, you look at a coach like Duke, or coach that Duke, one of them, and you see like how many NBA players did this coach produce? How many people left this coach's tutelage and went to the league? That's one metric that you could use to compare coaches. Which coach is better? Well, I could say this coach is better because they took 5 kids to the league. If that's the goal, it may not be. I could say this belief is better than that one because this belief got people upright, strong, self-assured, confident, successful, all that. This other belief got people downtrodden, meek, sad, depressed, lonely, anxious, things like that. Away from neuropsychology into philosophy, because who we really critiquing here? The assumptions that the soul exists. I'm saying as a soul, like, think about what beliefs you allow or what beliefs you attach yourself with, what beliefs you wear, kind of like clothes. If you decide to subscribe based on the other people that believe it, say you wake up one day and you like, I want to be blood, or I want to be great, whatever you choose. Like, look at the last 10 blood people you know. You can even look at the last 10 great people you know and see, like, yeah, based on the average of the last 10 I've seen, and that's with schools, like, look at the last 10 people you know that went to college. Look at the last 10 people that didn't go to college. If you look at the average, like, which one do you want? And granted, I acknowledge that as an individual, you may be above average, maybe below average. The average may be meaningless to you, may not matter in your actual personal life. But on a large scale, to do it. But as an individual, you know, it's a lot of wiggle room. You could be that one exceptional person that doesn't believe God exists and believe demons exist, and you're not depressed about it. Maybe you just gothic. Maybe you love demons. Y'all sit and parlay and sip tea and all that. Y'all just have a nice chill session. Maybe you just love the dark. You just Darth Vader. That is the research that I'm currently working on. If you would like to be a part of it, please take the survey, questionnaire. You want to know how to find a questionnaire, how to find the questionnaire. I may not put it in the description. I may put it in a post, which means stay tuned. You know, I'm gonna post it. I just might not post it attached to this video. I need to sleep on that, and it's like 3:33 in the morning. So, peace out, black people. Well, whatever y'all call yourself these days. And